Hi, howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio.
That are very interesting.
Yeah, they're very humorous and they're fun to hang around with. And my favorite thing that I can do is go out in the woods. I know most people are like, "Ooh, gonna go camping where Bigfoot is, spooky. I'm scared." And with me, it's just the opposite because I've been camping with them for so long. I know they're not going to hurt me. I totally trust them. I feel safer up there camping with them than I do sitting in town at my apartment.
Well, they're safe to be around. I used to go out in the woods at night all the time and, get around them. I mean, seriously, I did that for years.
Yeah.
But then I had a dogman encounter, and there's other things out there, and I don't go out in the woods anymore. I'm not going out in the woods anymore because that thing was violent. It killed a dog and hurt a horse, and not going there anymore.
Sounds like bad dog man. My both the groups that I hang around with seem to have dogmen hanging around with them because I've got them on video in both places, and both times they were with the Sasquatch.
The Foots left whenever the dogman showed up, and we're gone for a few weeks.
Yeah, up here they seem to get along. That one group that's been up there for a long, long time, they've got at least two dogmen that are hanging around with them because they got two different ones on video with them now. And both times there was like big groups of Sasquatch with one lone dogman with them.
I wonder if the dogmen that hang out with the Sasquatch aren't really a Sasquatch with a little bit of dog DNA thrown in them, possibly, so that they're more Sasquatch than they are anything. Whereas the ones that look more like just upright walking wolves, I'm thinking that those are the bad ones. Really bad.
The one I got last fall that had 3 Bigfoot around it, not to mention all the other ones that were in that video clip. He looked like a black German Shepherd. And the one that I got the previous year that was standing on his hind legs peeking around a tree and had a Sasquatch on each side of him, he was kind of brown and looked like a German Shepherd. There was nothing ape-like about either one of them. They could have passed for an average dog.
Or the body maybe more shaped like a person.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's just a theory that may or may not hold water because I haven't really talked to anybody about it. I haven't really studied the dogmen like I did the Sasquatch at all. But they kind of, since they've been on my plate, since I've got the DNA, their interest is now there.
Yeah.
And the fact that
I personally think there's more than one thing going on with the dogman. There's more than one thing that are being called dogman that are running around on the planet.
There's got to be some explanations for it. That monk that hundreds of years ago wrote the more or less scientific dissertation about the city of dogmen, it was very interesting. And it seemed like that they were fierce, but they weren't like constantly killing anybody or anything. It was they had a city, and anybody that's interested in dogman needs to go on YouTube and find that video and watch it because it's very interesting what this monk wrote about them. And the same with the Marco Polo, like you mentioned, he also came across the city of dogmen.
Yep. The other thing is there's multiple reports of them from the ancient period up to like the medieval period. And besides them being, stated to be, well, if you can actually hire them, they make a great mercenary army. The other thing is that they basically said they weren't very violent. They kept to themselves. They couldn't speak English. They had like barks and growls for a language or whatever. And they were great traders. They would trade with humans. You could trade things with them.
Well, the Foots traded with the Native American peoples.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a lot of oral legend there about them trading with. In fact, in my books, I broached that actually, that they were trading with one of the characters who was a Native American woman. And so, it's interesting, all of these historical references. And you can learn a lot by studying history prior to all the science studies and everything, and even the field studies.
Yep.
I highly encourage that. There's I don't know if it's still up. There used to be a website called the Very Hairy Dictionary. And it had over 100 different photographs of Sasquatch. And in Europe, like they're on cathedrals even.
Yep.
There are pictures of wild men on cathedrals. There are tapestries. There is art.
Yep.
In the Sistine Chapel, there's even a drawing that has Sasquatch in it in the Sistine Chapel.
We've showed it on my show before too. Yeah, it's right next to a river. There's like a little underground cave, and one side of it there's a male and a female Sasquatch, and the other side there's hell.
Yeah, exactly. I have actually seen that. I was in the Sistine Chapel. It's there.
Yep.
And so, it definitely, there's so much history out of Europe, which is older, of course, than the U.S. And, they're all the art. So you're going to see all of that. But once again, it goes back thousands of years before that, too.
Yep. Yeah, I had Robert Boston, Bigfoot in Germany, on my show a few times, and we've done Rich Soul and I did a couple of shows on European Bigfoot and whatnot, and there's just no doubt they're all over the place. When Robert was over there, he was getting a lot of pictures of that kind of local stuff. And, one of the little towns he lived nearby, right in the middle of the town square, they've got the water fountain. Every old-fashioned little town had that, right?
Oh.
So what's the water fountain? It's a statue of a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
They're Wildermann.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. They're everywhere. And, and they are hybrids. They are human hybrids. The mothers were all human, of course. They do not have DNA that matches on the paternal side. There's huge blocks of unknown DNA that doesn't even align with, even partially, with anything. And like I say, most of the DNA has been done on most species on Earth now, or at least, the mammals are pretty well done. And with that said, normally, in fact, you can look this up online, is they'll say that chimpanzee is almost human, Actually, that's a kind of a misnomer, in that they have the same genes we have, about 98% of the same genes we have, but their actual sequences are quite different. The sequences.
Aha, yes. As a matter of fact, dolphins have more sequences similar to us than chimpanzees do. And bananas have 97% the same DNA too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's kind of some misunderstanding there. We're not like chimpanzees.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
this is what they always use to justify that and say, oh, we're the next door relatives to chimpanzees. Bullshit.
Yeah, we just have the same genes pretty much.
Yeah.
But they're completely different sequences. And the sequence is what makes a person, or an animal, or whatever. It's gonna determine your physical makeup, your internal makeup, your, everything in you is determined by your sequence. And then there's, the genes are just, each gene has a function, but they're going to be different sequences in different species, very different.
Right.
And
well, that's what I'm saying. By that line of logic, then we're more closely related to dolphins, because they've got more of the same gene sequences we've got than chimpanzees do. So that's fallacious logic.
But they also have, it's kind of a neat little chart where it shows you the percentage of gene alignment. Mm-hmm. Like the chimpanzees, way up there in the high 90s, whereas bear is like 80%, and going down to dog and chicken and all these other things, about how the same genes in people are 30% in a dog or something. So, you can look at that and kind of get an idea of things, which is interesting, but the sequences are totally different. So, every species is very unique to themselves, even if their genes align. So, and the simpler the species, the more alignment with sequence there is. But by and large, there's so much misleading things out there that people that don't know science, they don't understand it. And they make assumptions based on what would make sense to them. I mean, I see where they misunderstand it. But we are not chimpanzees, and they are not us. And
we aren't dolphins or bananas either, as far as that goes.
Exactly. Interesting thing, though, chimpanzees, their chromosome 2 is inverted, which is a big difference. you have to have a karyotype to really, work with that. But they have a inverted leg on the chromosome, arm on the chromosome. So there's some interesting things out there genetically that between species, and I'm going to address some of that too in the new study. There's going to be a lot of stuff come out that people aren't expecting with this new study, because it's not going to just totally be just like the last one wasn't total genetics. It had the hair, it had the electron microscopy, it had other things besides the genetics. Well, this is going to be similar, but it's going to be a little different. And I think people are going to be really excited to read and understand, or watch and understand what's going on. And I hope we can raise even more money, because the more money we raise, the more we can reveal, because we'll be able to do some testing as well as other things to bring forth a more balanced picture of what they are and how they are, and other cryptids and the same type of thing. I mean, there's some real interesting things I have not shared that I will share. So I'm hoping people will donate to the Cryptid Genome Project, we're calling it. We have a GoFundMe, because the more we raise, the more we're able to do testing and what have you, and put this all together so that everybody will eventually have all this knowledge.
And we will have the link to her GoFundMe listed in the notes section on the video. Might even be running in the scroller on the screen right now. Go pay attention. Throw wads of money at her. Throw all the money you can afford to burn at her, then dig up some more and throw it at her. Understand? It is your duty. Go forth, fund Melba Ketchum. She is putting her butt on the line to actually do this research. She's put her butt on the line before, and they kicked her butt. But she came back, and she's going to keep going, and they can't stop her. So being that Americans love underdogs and people that tell the truth, let's throw all the money that we can afford to throw at Melba Ketchum and help her with this, because it's the very least we can do. The very least we could do is help fund this epic project.
Well, I appreciate it, Duke. I mean, like I say, we're putting the money toward these extra samples we have, and any that we will get in, and that's why I'm not just putting it. We set a goal for the minimal, but the more we raise, the more we can do, and the more cryptids we get from people. So I'm putting out a plea also. Anybody that's got weird cryptid stuff, it's not just Sasquatch, we would love to test it. And, it'll be no charge to you as long as we're raising research funding. So,
well, I'd send you my peanut butter container with the big finger marks in it, but I'll guarantee that's Sasquatch, so you probably don't
yeah. We've kind of got that under control, although we are going to do, 2 or 3 more with a different lab just to confirm our genomes a second time. But, there's just so much out there, but we can kind of kick this all together in one nice little tidy package, I think, if we can, raise enough to test everything and tie it together. And then we'll know what all these things are. We'll know at least their genetic makeups, and that will give us a lot of information. And then, we're not going to put any of the money toward field study or anything. Although some of that will be involved in this. I've talked more about it with this interview than I ever have. But, there's a lot of people doing, field stuff. They're out in the field. So
yeah, we got that covered. Don't worry about it. Just tell us what kind of sample.
I'm not worried about it. But there'll be just
what kind of cryptid do you want a blood sample from? We'll get one. Just tell us.
I don't want blood. I want hair with roots. And any kind of weirdness, actually,
How about some skeletal pieces?
I want some marine biologists to come up with some merman or mermaid DNA. I want that. Just for grins. A thunderbird, you mentioned a thunderbird. I'd love to have one. That'd be interesting.
Anybody lives over in the Philippines, shoot a rope and send her some samples of that. That should be an easy one to prove.
Well, like I say, I think they're going to be related. I may be wrong. We'll find out if we get, more samples to test. Like I say, what we got now is basically, like I say, dogman giant, elongated skull, and a couple of unknowns that seem to be hominid. And we got Zana and Quit, but I'm not like I say, they're at the bottom of the stack because there's already been some DNA done, and this would be just to confirm what was already done. Good scientists did it, so I'm fairly trusting of it, and I would like to, in the future, possibly do it. But that's only if we get enough to test everything we're going to test.
Don't scientists use the Reagan axiom that he used against the Russians when they said, "What do you mean you want to come and check our nuclear stockpiles?" And he said, "Trust but verify." Oh, we trust you, but we're going to verify it.
I like to verify everything. I mean, ours has been corroborated. Even unknowingly, it's been corroborated. And I'll bring that out too, both by a whistleblower that was dying as well as others. So, and like I said on the first part of this, is we had DNA sequence for the mitochondrial DNA that was human from other labs before. 3 other labs actually had found human for Sasquatch samples, and then we got the samples and did the nuclear, and it was unknown and different. So we knew right away that these things were not human per se, not real human, pure human or anything. So we took the same samples, we got the same mitochondrial sequence, and then we turned around and got nuclear sequence that made them different from the same samples. So we proved that they are not just human samples, which is what a lot of people say, or they think human contamination. And once again, I have that video on my YouTube channel about contamination. We have proof they were not contaminated by any other mammals. We used universal primers, and it would have been an overlay of the 2 sequences. So they can go watch that to show that was just a put-up thing.
That's one of the dodging disinformation tactics that the pseudoscientists have been using for a long time. Oh, we tested the sample, but you must have touched it, and because it came back human. Well, don't you know how to test a sample?
Well, Dr. Tom Gilbert is a very good scientist. He's the one that did the Dana first round testing. And like I say, I would just corroborate his probably. That's why it's at the bottom of the heap.
Yeah.
But he also did the meringue Pendec, and it was human on the human mitochondrial DNA. And he was attacked just like I was. And his lab is a consummate lab. He published tons of papers scientifically. And they called him, oh, they must have sweated on it. Your lab people must have sweated on it. Seriously, he got so mad he won't mess with it now. And it's a shame. We've lost a good resource there of a good scientist that was willing to look at this stuff. And now he won't, because he got so angry because the documentary made him to look like an idiot, just like they're trying to do me. Mm-hmm. So, it's not just me, it's anybody who touches it. And that's why I had so many scientists come and say, you can't tell anybody that I'm supporting you, but that was great work. They don't want anything to do with it because they'll get attacked. And it's a shame, because it's something that's valuable that needs to be done, because these cryptids are out there. They exist.
Yeah, just because somebody's giving Dr. Ketchum hell doesn't mean that they're reputable or reliable. There was recently a book that came out that the jabroni spent about 10 years compiling it just to attack Dr. Ketchum. And he had some other actual supposed scientists write a foreword to it. And apparently it was so researched and edited that they missed the fact they misspelled the word forward. Don't listen to people like that.
Well, I'll tell you a little something. The psych study within 6 months was discredited by Cambridge. If my study was so horrible or so contaminated or so messed up, I guarantee you there's a line of scientists standing in line to discredit it.
Yep.
I would have been wiped off of the planet by naysayers with genetic proof that I screwed up. Or not I, but our team screwed up.
Yeah. Well, where is it? It's been how many years now? Where is it?
Yeah, the only people I know that have tried to do anything are not even geneticists. Or they don't work in the field or never have worked in the field of genetics. There's been PhDs that have tried to come against it, but they're not qualified to even review it, much less come against it. So, show me the...
Does it tell?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Well, he came... I'll tell you where he discredited himself is right when it published, he immediately came out with, just raging against it. And then the guy that was interviewing him asked him, and it was actually Joe Rogan, I believe. I may be wrong. It could have been the Houston Chronicle, but it was one of them that came up and said, asked him if he had read the paper. And he hadn't even read the paper, but he was raging. Now, that's real scientific. If you don't even read the science and you're sitting there saying it's not good science, it's got to be contaminated.
You might find this interesting. One of my friends who used to be on my field research team was actually going to college to get a bachelor's in anthropology. And for the topic of his final dissertation to get his bachelor's, he decided to pick, could Bigfoot be real? And he extensively cited your study and also some other basic facts about distribution and food resources in North America. And he had like everybody in his class convinced Bigfoot 100% exists, and he got an A+ on it. So there you go.
Well, like I say, anytime you get into science that is not already proven and it's novel, and another quote that Disotol did is he said that we used technology so new that he didn't even know about it, or he didn't do it.
So, like, that's your fault that he's still got training wheels on his bicycle? No, that's his fault.
And I know that was, I believe, on Joe Rogan too, or it was, I believe that, yeah, that one was on Joe Rogan for sure. So y'all can go back and pull that archive and listen to it. It's really amazing. We did. Dr. David Swinson, who is a consummate scientist, he was the first person to map the Staph aureus genome. And so he has extensive, and he about blew his computer up, checking out our sequences and stuff. And he corroborated what we did early on. And he's also on Joe Rogan. Actually, that clip is on my YouTube channel where, he was not a believer, but, he got the same thing we did, basically. So.
Yeah, the guy you keep quoting is catching these guys in an interview isn't a believer either. I'm starting to like this Joe Rogan person, however.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but I was invited on, but he was hostile and I just wasn't going to deal with it. Why should I have to? Let somebody else try to disprove what we've done. Our team did a great job. I mean, I did not write that paper. I wrote portions of the paper and I put it all together, but each person that had the expertise wrote their part of the paper, as it should be.
Right.
Like and that did the whole genome sequencing, he wrote that part of it. The hair analyst wrote that part of it. The person that did the electron microscopy, he wrote that part of it. Because, nobody has all of those expertises. So we had each individual, and they were all highly valuable scientists. We had an MD on there that did the histopathologist. He was a pathologist. He did the histopath. So we had experts in every discipline in the paper, and it was a multidisciplinary paper. Write their own part of the paper, and then we just put it all together. And I put it all together. And, and I wrote part of it. I wrote part that, some of the parts that our lab did or we outsourced, and I handled the data. So it was a real team effort. But the day that it came out, they had so much blowback that they were calling me frantic because they were going to lose their jobs to feed their families and everything. And since I was the first author, I took fall. I let them go and said, just refer everybody to me. And that's how that started. And they think that they sound like, oh, me, the kitty cat vet, has done the whole paper. That is far from true. We used 12 labs. And, our part was very minimal as far as anything in that paper because, our one little lab, everybody would have laughed, oh, one lab has these results, ha, ha, ha. That's why we sent out all these samples to different labs. We didn't tell them what they were testing. And so we got a really nice, cross-section of the genetics of Sasquatch. And so, it's done with the greatest of scientific care and with wonderful people that were just the best. Like my second author, he actually has written papers on DNA extraction, and he's got state-of-the-art tools to do it with. And, so, I mean, he wrote the protocol for the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, the one they did where they identified the, I believe, Vietnam-era Tomb of the Unknown. So, I mean, these people are not just, sliced bread. They're the top of the field. I mean, the one that analyzed the electron microscopy was head of the department at Texas A&M. I mean, we had it was UT that did the University of Texas, did the whole genomes, and that was who wrote that part of it. I mean, all of these things we checked, we double checked, we did everything in our power to put as much data in there. It was so long that we had to put a lot of things like materials and methods in the actual supplements rather than where they normally are in the paper because it was so long. And that was courtesy of the Nature editor. He said, this is too long a paper. You have too much data, so we're going to have to put some of this in supplements. So one of the things that he suggested I do is put the materials and methods in the supplements, which I did. And the guy that didn't read the paper comes back, where's your materials and methods? I said, they're in the supplement. The editor told me to put them.
Derp. Oh, my God.
I mean, it was just, ridiculous. But we did good science. And I will stand behind my co-authors. I mean, one of them called me in a frantic that somebody had called the lab and said, how can you have a scientist working for you that believes in Bigfoot? I mean, that's not good. That's part of what ended my career is they'd get me in court and they would ask me, do you believe in Bigfoot? Well, I'm obviously not going to lie under oath. So yeah, I do. And then they would laugh and make the jury look at me like I was crazy. And so that ruined our forensics forever.
Well, the correct answer to that one is yes, I already proved that they're real. Aren't you paying attention?
Well, I did. I would go on and say that we wrote a scientific paper, proving their existence. But, it didn't matter because all the time defense or whoever was on the other side would be giggling and, making a show. So, but that's okay. I mean, actually, I enjoy writing, and that's what I do now a lot. It's, I write books. And so that's what I'm doing.
Well, I enjoy bludgeoning trolls with a mace, and I do that on pretty much every day. So trolls that plan on showing up on this show, you fell for the trap.
Well, the trolls are not fun, but it's just.
Oh no, they're fun. We like to embarrass them, then ban them. Please show up, leave stupid comments so I can embarrass you, then ban you.
Well,
that's what's going to happen.
I'm sure you'll have plenty with me because I tend to have a big red target on me. But
well, I'll be interested to see because the majority of the trolls on my channel we pretty much annihilated. There hardly ever any new ones show up anymore. I got probably like 500 people banned from my channel right now.
I'm sure that people will, I mean, it's like anything that can discredit me because of my knowledge base and because of what I've done, they're out there doing it. And,
we look forward to it. The more of the actual shill trolls out there that we can get banned off my channel, the better. So bring it on, trolls. Looking forward to banning you. And in the meantime, Melba has the link in the show here. Make sure that if you have extra ching and you want to find out the scientific truth about these cryptids, please donate to her study. She is going to do spectacular work just like she did last time. And where do people find you online?
On Facebook, on Twitter. Basically that's my main two.
Okay.
Facebook's probably easiest. I have a public page, Dr. Melba Ketchum, and then I have my private page, but it's pretty well filled up. I pretty well got close to 5,000 people on it. So I only have about 50 slots available for more friend requests.
There you go.
But, Twitter always, but I don't post as much on Twitter as I do Facebook. I'm really not a big poster. I mean, I'm a very reluctant person to be in the public. I'm very private. I don't post much about my personal life. I don't post much about anything other than science. And sometimes I even go a while without even doing that. Because I'm, like I say, I'm just a human being like everybody else. I'm nothing special. And I really don't like being singled out as special or anything or having fans because to me, we're all the same. I just have an expertise that I was trying to do. And that doesn't make me better anybody else.
You can't avoid it. You were destined. You know, your last name starts with a K. Your special K. Get used to it,
Yeah, I
Melba.
understand that that's an ex-married name. I'm really not even that.
Okay, so Dr. Special K is when you when you find out more stuff in the future, let me give me an assurance that you would be so nice as to actually come back on the show again and update everybody.
Oh, I'll be glad to. Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't do interviews very much. I don't like to. They need to be affiliated with radio because there's hundreds of podcasts out there, and I just can't do them all. So I limit it, and plus I
Thank God I don't have a podcast. Whew, boy, that's a relief. I don't do podcasts. I've never been on a podcast network. Actually, I had my own radio show for about a year, but I quit doing it. You know why? Because you can't show the evidence on a radio show. I want to show the evidence. That's why I do this show.
Well, regardless of it, it's, I'm very careful, and I really don't like doing them because it always just stirs up the haters, and
Yeah.
and then I get a bunch of emails that I don't have time to answer, and that's embarrassing.
I get to deal with that every day too.
Every time I try to at least answer everybody, and if I get a whole flood of them, like I get every time I do an interview, I miss a few, and then I feel really bad because I really do try to personally answer everybody. And, at this point, it's getting unmanageable. So.
Same thing with me, guys. If you send me a message and you don't hear from me right away, I'm sorry, but I'm only one person. I'm doing the best I can to try and do everything. And when you're cranking out a show every week, it tends to pile up. There's a lot of comments, messages, people need help with things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't hear back from me right away, well, send me another message. If you pester me enough, I'll probably get back to you sooner. That's about the only thing I can promise. I do the maximum amount that I can, being one person with limited amount of time to do all this stuff. But again,
ditto. Here.
Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been one of the things that I always wanted to do since I've been doing Bigfoot shows was I want to interview Melba Ketchum because I adore Melba Ketchum and all the work she's done for not only the Bigfoot community, but the Bigfoot, which, hey, some of them are my friends. So I really appreciate that. Just get the word out there. Hey, these aren't monsters. Quit shooting them, you idiot.
Well, now there are some that are, though.
So there's a lot of humans that are monsters too, and I bet there's a bigger percentage of human monsters than there are Sasquatch monsters.
Oh, I can guarantee that's true. I can guarantee that one. Having worked in forensics with all the monsters that come through the penal system, oh yeah, people are worse.
Oh, the ones that are running the governments, those are the biggest monsters.
Well, yeah, I'm just a scientist. I don't talk politics. I have them, but I don't talk them.
I do. I got a whole conspiracy channel, and I'm a conspiracy analyst and a geopolitics expert. So I will roast their butts. And if you missed the most recent one where we totally roasted their butts on a Beyond InfoWars level scale, go over to my Rumble channel and watch History of the Knights Templar Part 2, Death of the Knights Templar, Rise of the Banksters, to get what I'm talking about.
Well, there you go. I'll let him do it. I'll stay neutral.
You're already in enough trouble. At this point, we just don't even care anymore. We're just going to attack everything that's evil, period.
I just want to have a peaceful life. That's all I want. Stay on the farm and have peace.
Yeah. I just want to live out in the woods with lots of Sasquatch neighbors and have everybody else leave me alone.
Yeah, that's about where I want to be. So we're on the same page there. So anyway, I appreciate you having me. It's been a really interview, and I've way deviated from the science, and I hope that people will forgive me for that. But
well, no, that's okay, dear, and I think people are going to really appreciate it, and it's going to be refreshing because a lot of the stuff that you did in the past strictly focused on the science, and so it's more interesting, especially for my audience, because believe it or not, 85% of my audience probably have either seen a Bigfoot or had a Bigfoot experience. It's a very high percentage. So they are totally on board with what you're doing, and they're willing to give you 100% of their attention to listen to what you're saying, unlike some of these other audiences you might get stuck with.
Well, partially also, I've done so much of the science, and it's repetitive because I haven't come out with the new stuff yet, the new data, and so it's kind of boring to rehash it a million times. So years later, here we are with actual interaction, and things are different, but it's still the same science.
Yeah.
Science supports it. I think the future studies will too, but it'll just widen our understanding.
New cryptid data.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
That's much stuff I haven't shared yet. And then I've got new cryptid stuff. So.
Yeah, and see, I've gotten wind of that too, that there's some stuff you didn't share yet that you've already got. So, if you want to come back and do a part 2 or anything, just let me know whenever you want to. I'd be more than happy to have you back again.
I'm going to pull all of this together and do one big reveal, and then I'll probably do a bunch of interviews.
There you go.
But we've got so much. I mean, it's like when we wrote the paper, we only did some limited sequencing on the whole genomes for the paper. Now we have the whole genomes analyzed. We had a bioinformaticist that analyzed the entire genomes. We have nice little pie charts showing what's in them. And I have not released any of that.
Ooh, juicy.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out that nobody's going to see coming.
Awesome.
And it's not boring to talk about that there's neat stuff going to be coming out. And, and I'm talking strictly, pardon me being really lax with my scientific jargon tonight, calling it stuff instead of data, but I know the difference. But
it's my fault. I dumb all my audience and guests down so that everybody can understand what they're saying.
But, there's going to be so much coming out that nobody's going to see coming. And it's going to be so much fun to reveal it. So, and we're not going to test, though, until, the fundraising pretty well ends, because we want to see how much we're going to get, because we'll have to allocate the various monies to do what we need to do. And so we don't know what we're going to all be able to do except the bare minimals right now. We've got that covered, and that's great. But the more we raise, the more we can do.
Right.
And once we get to where it levels out and there's really no more donations coming in of any size, then we're going to figure it all out and see what all we can do and amaze y'all even more. And that's the goal.
I am just ridiculously excited to hear what you come up with. And I know I've already heard some of the leaks from the stuff that you haven't leaked yet.
Oh, who did it?
And I'm not saying nothing until you decide you want to come out and say something.
It's going to get updated. They got to sign an NDA because I don't want it leaked like the project was leaked.
Yeah.
And I will go after them this time.
And that's, and I always agree with that. NDA, no damn aliens. Never do any dealing with aliens.
Well, that would be another interesting DNA sample would be from an alien.
Yeah. And if that shows any human DNA, there's something really wrong going on.
Not necessarily, because what I understand, and I don't study this, mind you, but what I understand from people in the know, some of them are hybrids. That they do collect, when they abduct people, they collect their genetics, and they do use it to create creatures and people-looking ones and what have you. So I did have one that looked human that swears they were a part alien contact me, and I was like, "Get away! I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you." She wanted to meet me. I'm like, "No, we're not doing that." I don't want to be part of those. But there's a lot of and a lot of it's coming out and being corroborated. What's interesting is it's actually being corroborated by people that are ex-CIA whistleblowers at this point. And you'll do this on your conspiracy theory. There's a guy out there that talks about all the underground bases, the DUMBs, and he knows what each of them was for, and where they're at as far as any underground war. And there's 3 locations in North America where they make human hybrids. And one of them is Montauk, by the way. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting. And they do, even out in the open now, we have the technology to do gene editing with CRISPR,
yep.
and so you can actually make these things now
And that's how they make crispy critters with that CRISPR technology. And we did a Conspiracy Corner episode on Phil Schneider, the first guy that talked about the dumbs. And even at the time that he was talking about him, he was saying there was more than 30 North America. And I know somebody that claims that they were in one under Michigan where they've got a zoo collection of cryptids that they have stashed away down there.
I don't doubt it a bit. I don't doubt it a bit. This guy, he had a map. And I mean, this is kind of off subject, but it's interesting. And he went through each of them and said what their purpose was and whether or not the so-called white hats or the black hats were still controlling. And back last year and then a few years ago, we had these unexplained explosions around here. And it scared everybody. They were calling the sheriff's office and everything else. I don't scare easy, so it didn't really bother me, but it was interesting. And they all came from a certain direction, not too terribly far from where I live. And, you know, one of them was big enough it rattled the windows even. And they'd come at night usually. Well, fast forward to last year when this alleged underground war is going on, we had one great, huge explosion that was the same direction, same location as these previous ones. I think they were building it and then they blew it up. Just my humble opinion. And what was interesting is when this guy came on with this map of these dumbs, there was one right where these sounds came from, which I found interesting. So who knows? But
there might be something to it. I saw a video about a year ago where a guy was talking about that, and he had video of there's a city, I'm not going to name it, underneath it. Apparently something was going on because there was fire coming up out of the sewer grates.
Oh, yeah, I know all about that. Yeah, go for it. It was very interesting. And the other thing is this guy overlaid earthquake over his map of the dumbs, and they corresponded.
Yeah.
And we actually had an earthquake right around the time of that big boom, and we don't get very many.
According to Phil Schneider, they were using boring technology, big machines to make the tunnels in, and then they deflagrate a huge cavern using small nukes. So if they were making one, that would make the shock wave that would make you think it was an earthquake or something because they're making one. But on the other hand, if there's already one there and somebody decided to get rid of it and collapsed it, that would also make a big shock wave.
Well, they say they're using tactical nukes to get rid of them. That's, you know, what this guy was saying anyway.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yep.
That would definitely do it.
It's not genetic, so I don't need to be talking about it. It's all conspiracy.
Yeah.
Just interesting stuff I like to read. I mean, you know, my Achilles heel is my curiosity.
Yeah. Oh, that UFO thing, that's not hard science. We don't have any evidence for them. Bigfoot, on the other hand, we have DNA. Take that, UFO people.
I would love to check it against the unknown factor.
Send Dr. Ketchum some samples of whatever it is. Make sure to include picture, date, sample taken, and location where it was retrieved.
And preferably a type of sample that can be washed, like hair with a root or teeth or something like that. Although, if it's an interesting enough sample, we would do saliva or blood or something like that. But we prefer not, because those things will contain bacteria. Even if they're a clean sample for mammals, they will contain bacteria. So we're trying to keep it just as clean as possible.
Yep.
But the bacteria is not going to affect the outcome of the data. It's just going to be there. So.
Right on. Okay, any last words before we go?
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I've only been hoping for years that I would get you on the show, and I'm so very happy to have you here. And like I said, open invitation to come back and give us updates. I know by the time this show airs, you folks will already probably be aware of the fact that she was on Spaced Out Radio earlier this week. And we might even try and set her up with an interview on another big radio show too. So anyway, keep the attention, keep eyes on Dr. Ketchum and help her, because she needs all of our help. And meanwhile, you guys all know the drill. Don't go getting lost in the woods. Don't pick on people and be mean. And don't feed donuts to the Loch Ness Monster. And the main and most important thing ever, do not hug the Wookiees.
Oh boy, I love it.
Everyone, safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? And for God's sake, whatever you do, do not hug the Wookiee.